Everybody, and welcome back. So in this one we're going to talk about should you or should you not turbo your Accord or Civic or any car you're looking to turbo, because pretty much all of this applies to everything. But as somebody who has now done it twice to two vehicles myself, I can provide some insight on what it takes to turbo the car. So I didn't really take any notes on turboing the car, but I'll just crudely go over everything and show you on the car. So you need to have an exhaust manifold to redirect exhaust gases to the turbo. So on this car, it's a basic log manifold setup, and it funnels into the turbo, which is a T3 flange, a 4-bolt T3 flange. So you need turbo manifold, turbo. You need to do some sort of downpipe or uppipe if you're coming out of the hood, and that's relatively easy if you're going out the hood, but otherwise you're going down to wherever you want to take the exhaust with your downpipe. And you have to, at this point, take into account some of the other things we're going to talk about later, like emissions and catalytic converters and things like that. And then you have turbo, like I said, intercooler piping to your intercooler in front, and then out of your intercooler into your throttle body. And you'll need a blow-off valve. You'll also need the wastegate, which is on the manifold. So this regulates boost pressure, and this is what allows the excess pressure to bleed off when you let off the throttle and makes the whoosh noise. That's that guy. And the wastegate dumps extra exhaust gases to wherever. You could recirculate into the exhaust, or you could send it like this is like a screamer pipe right under the car. So you need those things there, basic parts, basically to make this work. There's not much else that you need other than upgraded fuel system, right? Like upgraded injectors. Usually stock rails and stock fuel lines are okay, and you gotta do an in-tank high flow pump, like a Walbro 255 or a 450, depending on how much power you're looking to make. You can use one of those options, and there's definitely other ones out there too. So upgraded fuel system, upgraded, manifold turbo system here, and then you have to feed the turbo oil. So you got to get an oil feed line like this braided line right here, and that's going to come from either a oil filter sandwich plate on the rear of the block, or you could do off of where the oil pressure switch is and get like a T fitting or a 3-way or 4-way fitting and screw your 1/8-inch pipe threads into there with using some sort of thread tape or thread locker or something like that to make sure they don't leak. And that will feed your turbo, and then you have to run a drain from the turbo to the oil pan. And that's pretty much it as far as mechanical work that you have to do to the car. There may be other little things here and there. Obviously, you're cutting out sections of your bumper. You got to mount your intercooler. Piping, you got to do couplers and T-bolt clamps, which give you the best result. Or you can do some welding / brazing like I did on this. You don't need water meth injection like I have, but that's another thing that can help to make things safer. You need to figure out what fuel system you're going to run. So if you're going to run E85, you have to get E85 compatible injectors and pump. If you're going to run 93, which it's all about what's available in your area, I would run E85 if I had it. So that's that. But that's the basic rundown of what you're doing when you're turboing a car. It sounds really simple, and it really kind of is. It's not that crazy. The complicated part is when you get into tuning. So you need to tune this car. And this is sort of getting into one of my other things there. So we'll cover that in a second. I have some stuff written on the whiteboard. But essentially, you'll probably also want little things like a catch can. And I have a catch can over here where these AN lines run. So you have these lines that come out of your valve cover. Usually it's nice to have a baffle, but you can have these lines welded on or something like that to take away the exhaust gases so you don't pressurize the crankcase, because these boosted vehicles get a lot of blow by past the rings, and they're going to create excessive crankcase pressure, and you need to vent that into usually a dedicated catch can that'll catch the oil, vapors, and fumes and let all the other stuff out of this filter here. So that's something else that you will probably need. So I think that's about it for a turbo system. Other than engine management. So let's get into our next phase here. So when thinking about turboing, you want to look into, is this your daily driver? So if this is going to be something that you are driving every day, you need to look at A, reliability, and B, the downtime. So this takes time to do. Obviously you don't have to go crazy and do the whole engine bay like, brand new, but to put a turbo kit on, You could do it in a weekend, but usually you have to like know kind of what you're doing, and this isn't your first rodeo if you're doing it in a weekend. This took me a lot of time, and if you're fabricating a downpipe, you know, this is going to take you some time. There's not like a lot of kits that you can buy to bolt on this car. So maybe some Civics you can like do in a weekend, but because you're like all just eBay slapping stuff together, but this is not quite like that. You have to drill a hole in the oil pan. I mean, usually that involves removing the oil pan. So like that's a large task. I mean, some people do drill it and then try to fish the shavings out, or they put grease in the drill bit and just send it, and like that's fine. I'm sure that's good. I did it on my truck. I didn't take the oil pan off the Avalanche when I turboed that, so I get it. You can do little shortcuts here and there to save some time, but you know, to do this is going to take, if you're working on it every night, well, a couple weeks, maybe a few weeks, you know, possibly a month or more if you're not too experienced and you don't really know what you're doing and you're fabricating stuff. So, you know, it's definitely a lot of struggle. However, it's not to say that it's undoable. Obviously, I did it, and you guys totally could do it too. If you have access to the right tools and equipment and practice, you really can't do anything, but everybody's timeline is going to be different with that. So you got to think about how long the car is going to be down while you're doing that, and also how reliable it's going to be. Now, this thing's been pretty good to me. The only issues that I had with it were the turbo, which, you know, it's an eBay turbo. I only spent $220 on the original one, and this one was a little bit more, $240. Price went up a little bit, but it's a CX Racing turbo. And, you know, it was good for a long time, and then it started to smoke. And mainly on a cold start, it would smoke really bad, and then it would clear up. But it was just because the seals were messed up in there, and I don't know if I didn't feed it enough oil. So I drilled the restrictor out a little bit to feed it more oil, so I'll let you guys know long term. The other one did about 10,000 miles. So I know it doesn't sound like that much, but I don't drive this car that much. It isn't my daily driver. You know, you totally could daily this. My Avalanche's turbo, when I drive that a lot, I've been using that to move stuff to my new house and whatnot. So it is doable. I did daily this for a little while my truck was down and whatnot. So, it's possible. You can daily it, but it's nice to have a backup. You know, if you are dailying something, you have a backup. If this breaks and it's because you blew the engine and you have a rod knock, you're kind of in trouble. You know, and you can't really beat on something and work. You know what I mean? Like you'd have to run in a really low boost, and you can do that, which is fine. I drive the truck and I kind of baby it because I don't want to break it. So it all depends how you drive. Are you aggressive? Are you gonna blow it up? Like, cause you're always ripping it everywhere, which you may rip it everywhere and it might still not blow up, but it just depends. If you drive easy, like it's a stock car, you're not even doing anything with this. I mean, you may get a few little pickups here and there from low end power and stuff with the turbo spooling, and just even not in boost, you can feel the pickup from a turbo. However, you're not doing that much wear and tear. So yeah, there's a lot going on there. Also, a lot of people ask me, should they turbo their automatic? And I have to say, I say no, but it depends. If you drive really easy, then I'm sure it'll be fine. And you'll make some whoosh noises and it'll be cool. But it's not really gonna be a fast car ever, because you're gonna have a transmission problem when you try to turn it up, because it's just gonna slip. They're not made to hold that kind of power. Manual transmissions have mechanical gears meshing that can withstand a lot of power. So it's just not the same in an automatic transmission where you have clutches holding under fluid pressure. They slip at a certain point. You need an upgraded transmission. So I don't know anything about upgraded automatic transmissions for these cars. Maybe for trucks it's different, but I can tell you something about that. Anyway, that's pretty much it for the reliability daily driver segment. So talking about engine management system, we have in here a chipped P28 along with a bunch of other stuff underneath the carpet here. So you can see my ECM in there, and that is a conversion from OBD2 to OBD1. Since this is a 96, was originally an OBD2 unit, we brought it back to OBD1, and we are running it on a chipped P28, and I use it's a Motes Ostrich. So that's what's back here, just hanging out. I don't want to disconnect anything here, but it's right here. This is the Motes Ostrich V2, and you know, it's been really good to me. It's a ribbon cable, and it allows you to plug in where the chip normally goes, and it's a real-time emulator. So you're actually able to real-time program this ECM on my laptop. So it's really cool that I'm able to do that, and I prefer that method, honestly, to swapping chips. I think anybody would. There's also Han Data, and you have definitely other things you could do. So I personally use Honda Tuning Suite on this thing, and based on that, I think that you really have to find out how you're going to tune this thing. And these are my categories over there. But if you're going to tune this thing yourself, then use whatever you want. But if you're going to have someone tune this thing, you need to contact them and find out what they use and what they're comfortable with using on your car. Because if they don't know how to tune with it, they may not want to. You may have bought something that isn't going to work for you. So just talk with your tuner and figure out what they want you to use, and if it's even doable for them or something that they'll want to tune. So that's how I recommend that for needs to tune. So who's going to tune it and what engine management system is it going to run, and they're dependent on each other. So just talk with your tuner, or if you are the tuner, then figure out what you want to use, because there's a lot of options out there for these cars. And then we run into emissions, which I talked about before. So emission standards are going to come into play here when we're talking about what state you live in. Me personally, in Connecticut, this is emissions exempt. Anything 25 years and older is emissions exempt. So this is a 96, making it, 27 years old now. So it is emissions exempt. I no longer have to do emissions, so I can pretty much do whatever I want to the car. So if you're not like that, you need to consider the emissions in your state and what that limits you to. There's obviously ways that people will get around it, and I'm not advocating for that. I'm just saying you can explore those avenues. I'm not telling you how to cheat your emissions. That's not smart, on my opinion, or on my part to do with you guys. Anyway, this is it for emissions, really. I don't have much else to say. I mean, if you ran a CAT on this, a catalytic converter, it's just, there's so much that's changed. They're going to OBD1, and they wouldn't be able to plug into your OBD1 computer and scan it properly. So you would just fail. So you'd have to put your OBD1 computer back, OBD2 back in, and I have so many sensors unplugged, it's not even funny. This thing would ping a check light immediately, and I'd have all sorts of issues. So you just have to keep that in mind. If you're gonna highly modify something and then try to send it through emissions, you might have an issue. So check if you need to go through emissions still, and you probably shouldn't modify it. That's why I wouldn't do anything on a newer vehicle like that still has emissions. You know, when I bought this, it was pretty much running out. I had one or two more tests to do. So anyway, the next section is cost. So with the cost of all this, it all really depends on what you want to do. I think I spent likely like $2,500 on everything. I think it was like, the turbo's $200, the manifold's like $60, exhaust piping, $50 to $100, I'm sure. Intercooler stuff, I'm sure is like $100 for the intercooler and piping. I've since upgraded intercoolers and upgraded all sorts of things here and there, but your basic turbo kit is like $1,500, but then you got to buy your tuning stuff, and you have to buy your injectors and your pump and all that stuff. So you can do decapped injectors to save money like I've done, and I use injectors out of a Silverado basically in this thing, which I have videos on if you guys are interested. I have videos on pretty much all of this stuff if you guys are interested. Just to sort of plug the channel here, just go on and check them all out. So I know it's a lot of info crammed into this video. I'm talking a lot, but I just want to inform you guys on how to make a good decision here on what you should be doing with your car. And you can still have fun with a car that doesn't have a turbo. Turbos are very fun though, I'm not gonna lie, it's really cool. And it's totally worth it. In my opinion, I would do it again in a heartbeat. But you have to think about how much it's gonna cost you. So you have a car that's worth probably about $1,000, and you're probably gonna put about $1,000 to $2,000 into the car, at least, if you're doing it all yourself. So, you kind of got to think about, is that worth it to you? And if you don't really care and you're going to keep the car and it's fun, blah, 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 then maybe it's worth it and you should do it. But if you're like, wow, I don't think I can spend that kind of money, then maybe you shouldn't be turboing your car because it costs money. And then there's maintenance involved too. I do frequent oil changes on this because I think the turbo beats the hell out of the oil. It really gets it really hot, and I think it does a lot of breakdown. I'm sure I could run it longer than I do, but I typically change the oil in this every 1,000 miles. But like I said, I don't drive it that much, so it sits a lot. So that usually equates to like once or twice a year. So I think last year I drove it 2,000 miles and then changed it or something. So I do run it for longer at times, but I do change the oil a lot on this thing. So that's something else to take into account. And the last thing is, it's fun. Number 5 is it's fun, because there's just nothing like driving a turbocharged car that's got an open exhaust and it's got the blow-off valve. It makes all the cool noises that you want. It may not even be the fastest car in the world, and this car isn't. But it gets out of its own way, don't get me wrong. I mean, you're pretty much double the factory overrated horsepower. So you're definitely gonna feel it. It feels much faster than it did. And that's all that really matters, you know, is that you're making an improvement. And yeah, so if you're gonna do it right. Don't try to do any of this like, I'm just gonna turbo it and not tune it or anything like that. People ask me that all the time. Can I just get a turbo and not tune it? And it's like, you could, and you're probably gonna break something. So it's like, you could do it, but you probably shouldn't, because it's not worth it. Just save up a little bit more or spend the extra money and get it tuned. You know, if your emissions is your issue, then either wait a little longer till your car's out of emissions, or buy something that's emissions exempt, or, you know, maybe turboing isn't the right mod for your car. Maybe you should try something else, because it is not easy. This whole process, finding info is not easy, but I do try to help where I can. So if you guys have questions, don't hesitate to reach out. Don't feel like you can't contact me. Sometimes it takes me a while to respond because I'm quite busy with a lot of things I got going on now, not related to cars, but I want to try to continue to make some Accord videos for you guys. And I know that's what you guys care about. So I'm trying to provide some good Accord content, and I will continue to try despite being busy and things moving with my life, you know? So thank you all for watching. And if you enjoyed this video, subscribe, and there will be more content like this coming up. And hopefully more videos of me driving the car, because I'd like to take it over to the new house and show it off over there. I think it'll look really good. And yeah, there's a lot of room over there to take some nice pictures, and we'll do that. So thank you all for watching. Subscribe and like the video, and we'll see you in the next one. Peace.